Welcome to Wisdom Unveiled. This is our 37th deep dive, and today we're looking again at the amazing 12th century Persian poet and mystic, Attar Nishapur.
That's right. And like always, we're aiming to, navigate these really rich philosophical ideas, pull out the core concepts, and give you a kind of shortcut to understanding some pretty deep stuff. Maybe find a few surprises, too.
Our source material, well, it comes from those fantastic conversations with the Iranian philosophers Dr. Ibrahim Dinani and Dr. Esmail Manzuri Larijani from the Marifat recordings.
And we do need to give our usual quick note here. This is a translation, a reproduction of those talks. So some concepts, maybe some details might not come across perfectly. We apologize if anything's lost, but we really think the essence, the core wisdom is definitely there.
So today we're diving into how Attar uses these, well, transformative stories, parables, to push us past the surface level. We'll dig into his ideas on inner truth, justice, the traps of self-deception, and really the immense value of your own soul. So I got to unpack this. So Attar, he doesn't really do dry philosophy lectures, does he? He's known as a master of kaya, that's indirect speech, using stories in his poetry.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is he chooses that method. Because suggesting something, implying it, is often just so much more powerful, more eloquent than stating it outright. It kind of forces your mind to work, to unpack the meaning yourself.
Right, so you're not just like downloading information, you're actively involved in figuring it out.
Precisely. You become a partner in discovery. It actually reminds me of how the Quran uses Hasan al-Qasas's The Best of Stories, aiming them at those with ulul absar, that inner vision. The truth is right there embedded, but you need that inner sight to really get it.
Okay, this idea of cultivating inner sight, it perfectly leads into one of his most famous parables, right? The story of the man, the guest, and the dog.
Attar tells us about this seeker praying really hard for a guest to visit. God promises him one, says someone will arrive the very next day. So the man, he's full of expectations, gets his house spotless, probably picturing some, saintly figure showing up.
But when he opens the door, he's just a dog. And he's disgusted, chases it off. Then he waits around all day, totally confused, let down, waiting for the real guest.
And the punchline comes later. In a dream, God tells him that dog was the guest, the blessing you begged for. You rejected it because it didn't match your picture.
Wow. Okay, so what's the deeper meaning here? It's obviously more than just, be nice to dogs.
Oh, much deeper. Attar is really pushing us to shift our whole way of seeing. From the Zahiri, that superficial external glance, to the Batini, a really deep internal way of seeing. He wants us to cultivate hakikat ben, a truth-seeing eye.
So with this kind of eye, you could look at anything, even something people think is lowly or, unclean, and see a potential connection to the divine.
That's the goal. The man's problem wasn't the dog itself, it was his own rigid mental box, his expectations. Attar actually calls this distancing yourself from yourself. It means shedding the ego's demands, those conditioned ideas, the illusions, really clearing out the inner clutter so you can actually perceive spiritually.
And if you manage to do that, if you achieve this clarity.
Well, Attar says then all beings can potentially be seen as manifestations of the divine. You stop just waiting for a guest and you become, in a sense, the host of the entire world. He has that beautiful line. A human is an eye. The rest is skin. The eye is what sees the friend. It's all about that inner vision.
This is fascinating. And it leads into another area, doesn't it? Justice. Attar uses another story for this from his Mizabat name, The Book of Afflictions. It involves the mystic Shibli and two kids fighting over a walnut.
Yeah, that's the one. Shibli sees these two kids going at it over this walnut. He steps in, planning to divide it fairly between them. But then he cracks it open, and it's empty, just a hollow shell. And he sighs deeply, realizing the futility of it all, and understanding in that moment that he isn't a true qasam, a genuine divider or distributor of justice.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Who are the kids? What's this empty walnut really about?
Well, the kids, they represent the people of the world. The Aladonia, as Attar calls them, always squabbling over things that are ultimately trivial, empty. Think about it. So many conflicts, wars throughout history. They're essentially fights over these empty walnuts disputes without real substance, no deep spiritual core.
And Shibli realizing he's not a true Qassam.
Yeah.
What's that telling us?
It's about recognizing limitations, his own, in that moment. He thought he could impose fairness, but he was confronted by emptiness. And this points towards who the true Qassam is. First, well, ultimately it's God, the perfect distributor, ensuring everything in existence is precisely where it should be. Everything is in its proper place.
Okay, God is the ultimate source. And then on a human level.
That's where the concept of the perfect human, the insani kamil, comes in, often exemplified by Imam Ali, who has the title Ali Qasim al-Jannah wa al-Nar, the divider of heaven and hell. His very being, his actions, his choices, they become the standard, the criterion. Following his path leads towards paradise, deviating leads elsewhere. His existence is justice embodied in this view.
So that raises a big question then. What is real justice, according to Attar?
Well, he connects justice edul with et adul, which means balance, moderation, staying away from extremes. But crucially, he emphasizes that justice is fundamentally internal. It's ethical, like taqwa, piety. You have to be just within yourself first, in your own desires, your actions, before you can even hope to bring justice to the world around you.
So it all circles back to self-knowledge again. Knowing the proper place of things, starting inside.
Exactly. Without that deep knowledge, that marifat, we just end up imposing our own subjective wants and calling it justice. That's why Attar has that sharp line. Kabdara as jinstilabnaz ada asva kunaraka tura. Seek worth from substance, not from claims. Claims will eventually expose you. So many people throughout history have claimed to stand for justice while doing terrible things, often because they lacked that genuine connection, that inner grounding.
It reminds me of that story, maybe it's Rumi, about the lion, the wolf, and the fox dividing the hunt spoils. The wolf tries to divide it based on his own greed.
And the lion kills him for it.
Yeah, yeah. Then the fox comes along and gives almost everything to the lion. The lion asks, "Who taught you such perfect justice?" And the fox says,
"The wolf's head." Exactly. It perfectly shows how self-interest just completely warps any sense of fairness. And this is where Attar's idea of bideli, spiritual detachment, becomes so important. The perfect human is bideli alam, detached from these worldly cravings. Only from that state can you enact true, impartial justice. Otherwise, Attar says, "Kalakrachon kishmikad modam." People just constantly want others to be exactly like them, projecting their own desires onto everyone else and calling it truth.
And us. Are we like that walnut sometimes?
Ah.
Closed off.
Attar definitely implies that. We're often like that closed walnut. We need to sort of break ourselves open through real self-reflection to see what's actually inside, or maybe what's not inside. Shibli sigh. That was the sound of him beginning to crack open, wasn't it? Realizing his own, perhaps, inner emptiness in that moment. It's a start.
That idea of breaking open, finding wisdom inside, that connects to another insight from the Mysticism name, right? About digging within. There's a story about a camel.
Yes, a spiritually aware person, symbolized as a camel, encounters someone who's just obsessively cleaning their physical house, non-stop scrubbing.
And Attar uses that cleaning as a metaphor.
For being totally focused on the physical body, the external world, appearances, the camel asks him, essentially, why pour all your energy into cleaning this house? Why not dig a well, a chak in your heart, in your inner being?
And what's at the bottom of this inner well? What do you find there?
According to Attar, you find the water of gnosis, marifat, or sometimes called abihayat, the water of life. If you just keep looking outside yourself for fulfillment, he has this incredibly powerful phrase for it. You're begging on a treasure, Sargadani. You're literally sitting on this immense inner wealth, but going around begging for scraps from the outside world. Only that inner gnosis, that self-knowledge, is truly lasting, eternal.
Begging on a treasure. That really paints a picture. And how does this inner world relate to, say, our thoughts and words?
He has a really interesting take on that, too. He says, speech, Sukhan, is the house of thought, and Disha. The idea is that thought needs somewhere to live, you know?
Yeah.
And language provides that structure. But if you have speech without real substantial thought behind it, it's just noise. It's an empty house.
Which ties into one of Attar's really fundamental teachings about what it means to be human. Adam was two worlds. Adam Hardu, Elam Bud. What's he really getting at with that?
Oh, it's huge. It's profound. He's saying humans are unique because we exist in two completely different realms at the same time. There's the physical world, the Tannar body. It's finite. It decays. We all know that. But then there's this entirely separate realm, our endisha, our thought, our intellect, our consciousness.
And crucially, he's arguing this thought doesn't just bubble up from our brain chemistry.
That's the key distinction he makes. He argues that thought actually originates from another realm altogether, a world of pure meaning, of abstractions. Our brain cells, they're just the tools, the interface, the hardware, maybe. But things like virtues, vices, our capacity to think about abstract concepts like justice or beauty or infinity, these stem from that non-physical world of endisha.
So our thought is kind of our connection, our bridge to to something beyond the physical, maybe even the infinite.
Precisely. Think about it. Only human thought seems capable of grappling with non-finite ideas. Infinity, eternity, God. Our senses are stuck in the here and now, the physical, but our thought can reach beyond those limits.
Okay, so going back to that inner well for a second. If it's not about physically digging, how do we access it? What's the method?
Attar gives this really beautiful, almost paradoxical instruction. He says, sighing is necessary, not digging work. A deep sigh, a genuine ah, he says. If it truly comes from the depths of that inner well, it's actually a sign that the depth is there within you. It's a sigh born of longing, of a kind of spiritual ache he calls dard.
Ah, dard. Sometimes translated as sweet pain.
Exactly, sweet pain. It's this deep yearning, almost like a spiritual homesickness for our divine origin, for where we truly came from. And it's sweet because the very fact that you feel that ache proves there's still a connection. That longing, that dard, it's what fuels the whole spiritual journey. It can transform that initial marifat, that knowing, into pure love, esh. Reaching a state Attar poetically calls light wine. Nori May.
And this interconnection, this transformation,
Yeah.
it ties into that powerful idea found in mysticism about the human heart being the very throne of God, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. You know the saying, the heart of the believer is the throne of the all-merciful.
Mm.
Attar would likely say that the light emanating from that throne is the light of the perfected human heart, the place where Marifat resides, where the divine finds a home within us.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to perhaps a more confronting parable Attar uses, the story of Pharaoh and Satan.
Right, this one is stark. Attar paints this scene. Satan confronts Pharaoh. And this is Pharaoh at his peak arrogance, the one who famously declared, I am your Lord, the Most High, the ultimate egomaniac. Satan performs a miracle right in front of him, takes a handful of sand, turns it into gleaming pearls, then poof, back to sand again.
A display of power way beyond anything Pharaoh could possibly do.
Exactly the point. Satan then challenges Pharaoh, go on, you do it. And Pharaoh, of course, is powerless. He has to admit he can't. But here's the real sting. Satan then utterly rejects Pharaoh. He says he wouldn't even accept Pharaoh as his slave. He finds Pharaoh's arrogance just contemptible, precisely because it's built on absolutely nothing. It's empty boasting.
Wow. So even Satan is disgusted by that kind of baseless ego. What's the core insight Attar wants us to take from this?
Attar is showing us that Pharaoh's massive ego isn't a sign of strength. It's actually a sign of profound spiritual weakness, a deep inner emptiness. It represents the lowest, most diluted state of the nafs, the ego, the lower self. And the story really highlights this crucial link between tabir, which is how you perceive yourself, your self-understanding, and tahayyur, which means change or transformation. Pharaoh couldn't achieve any real tahayyur because his tabir, his self-perception, was completely false, totally distorted.
So you can't genuinely change or grow if your fundamental understanding of who you are is just wrong.
That's the bedrock principle here. You absolutely need an accurate tabir before any real, meaningful tahayyur is even possible. It brings to mind that powerful saying attributed to Ali, the wise is he who knows his worth. True wisdom begins with honest self-knowledge, seeing yourself clearly without the ego's smoke and mirrors.
And Attar, he doesn't let us off the hook, does he? He brings it right back to us.
No, he drops this bombshell right at the end of retelling it. Pharaoh is your nafs. Boom, he's pointing the finger straight at us. He's saying that same arrogant, self-deceiving, fundamentally weak inner pretender exists inside every single one of us. That lower self, that nafs, that is our inner Pharaoh. The Quran calls it the nafs al-amara bil-su, the self that constantly incites towards negativity or evil. Rumi had that incredible image for it. Remember, a hungry dragon that could devour the whole world and still roar for more.
So it really boils down to being the master of yourself, or the slave.
Yes, exactly. Mastery comes when we engage our higher faculties, our intellect, our reason, our ability to discern truth, our connection to divine guidance, whatever form that takes for you. Slavery is the result when we're ruled by hawa, just our whims, our base passions, raw desires, driven by that inner Pharaoh. It's all tied up with free will, isn't it? That incredible, maybe terrifying gift of choice, which carries the immense risk of choosing badly.
That's a heavy thought. The responsibility inherent in that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And this connects directly to Attar's really sharp critique of how we value things, or rather, misvalue them.
Absolutely. He basically throws this question right in our faces. You know the price of every commodity. You know what your car is worth, your house. But your own worth, the value of your own soul, yawn, you do not know. Oh, foolish one. He really laments how we gamble away the soul, the eternal part, for the sake of the body, the temporary part. He calls it making a terrible bargain.
So how do we avoid making that terrible bargain? What's the key according to Attar, to actually valuing our Jian, our soul?
The key, he strongly suggests, is humility. Genuine humility. He says, he who is not humble in his own eyes, God has no business with him. It's about seeing reality clearly, recognizing your own limitations, your dependence on something higher, something beyond the ego. It comes back to that accurate tabir, that honest self-perception. That seems to be the necessary doorway to anything beyond the rule of the inner pharaoh.
So if we try to pull all these incredible threads from Attar together, this need for inner sight, unmasking the ego or inner pharaoh, tapping into that deep inner well of marifat, of gnosis, and really grasping the true value of our soul, our Jan, it really does paint a coherent picture for inner work for transformation.
It really does. You know, that Pharaoh and Satan story, it isn't just some ancient tale. It's Attar holding up a mirror, isn't it? A mirror to our own ego, reminding us that real strength isn't found in bluster or claims, but in that quiet, honest self-perception, that accurate tabir, which, again, just underscores how absolutely vital self-knowledge is. Knowing your actual worth, your soul's worth, not your net worth or your job title, that seems to be the non-negotiable starting point for any real change. Otherwise, like you said, you're just building on sand.
And it's about learning to recognize that voice, that inner pharaoh, that nafs, that hungry dragon Rumi spoke of. Seeing its patterns, its demands, its tricks, its deceptions. And then consciously choosing to use your higher tools, your intellect, your reason, your spiritual compass, to be the one in charge, to be the master, not the slave.
So maybe for you listening right now, it could be worth just pausing for a moment, reflecting. What subtle, maybe even unconscious little pharaoh-like delusions might be running parts of your life sometimes? You know, what false ideas about yourself might be holding you back, keeping you from admitting maybe a weakness and therefore blocking you from accessing your true strength, your real inner potential.
And maybe think about this too. How could really truly grasping your inherent worth, not based on achievements or status, but your Jan, your essential soul value, how could that be the crucial first step toward the kind of authentic freedom and deep connection Attar is pointing towards?
And finally, that feeling. Remember that subtle, maybe even sweet dart, that ache Attar described. If you feel any kind of longing inside, you know, for something deeper, something more meaningful than just the day-to-day grind, what might that feeling actually be telling you? Could it possibly be an invitation? A sort of nudge from within, a prompt to start looking inward, to genuinely seek your origin, your true home, and maybe, just maybe, to finally step onto that path of real self-discovery.
Really powerful questions to sit with, definitely things to explore in your own time, in your own inner world. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive here on Wisdom Unveiled.
It's been a true pleasure. We really hope you'll keep exploring these incredible, timeless ideas. Until next time, keep seeking, keep asking those deep questions, and, well, keep growing.